Hello everyone, let me ask you something. Have you ever looked across the room at a woman, felt that instant spark and thought, if she just gave me a chance, I could make her feel everything she's been missing? Only to watch her turn and lean in toward another man. A man you're certain doesn't look better, dress better, or even treat her better than you would. And in that instant, you wonder why him and not me. It's a question as old as desire itself. We grow up believing attraction is logical, that it's about looks, money, status, the things you can measure. But the truth is far more primal, far more hidden. A woman's choice to let a man into her bed, whether after hours, weeks, or never, is a deeply layered dance between biology, psychology, and something far less tangible, the way you make her feel in those first unspoken moments. Because she's not just choosing a body, she's choosing a story, a feeling, a possibility. And the strange, sometimes frustrating truth is those decisions are made long before she says yes or no. Tonight, I'm going to take you into that invisible space, the space between what you think women want and what actually pulls them in instantly. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You see, the moment a woman meets a man, something begins that has nothing to do with conscious choice. Her mind, her body, her history, they all start working together, scanning for signals. Not just what does he look like or what does he do, but how do I feel when I'm near him? And here's the thing, she's not always aware this is happening. Most of it is silent. This is why so many men get frustrated. You've been taught to present your resume, not your energy. You lead with facts, where you work, what you drive, what you've achieved. But none of that matters if, in her nervous system, you feel like static. Because attraction isn't a spreadsheet, it's a chemical shift. And that shift happens in the very first moments. The way you walk into a room, the way you stand when you're not speaking, the calm or chaos in your eyes when she first meets them. These things speak before your words ever do. Some men, without even realizing it, walk into her space like they belong there, not in a loud, arrogant way, but in a grounded, certain way that says, I know who I am, and I'm okay if you see all of it. That's the first thread of the mystery, safety and thrill at the same time. If she feels completely safe but there's no spark, she'll put you in the friend box. If she feels spark but no safety, she'll put you in the dangerous but not tonight box. The rare, magnetic man gives her both at once, the steady ground under her feet and the fire she can feel in her chest. And here's where most men go wrong. They confuse impressing with connecting. Impressing is external, it's about performance. Connection is internal, it's about resonance. A woman will sleep with a man she feels deeply connected to far faster than one who simply ticks the boxes on paper. Why? Because connection bypasses logic. It makes her want to explore the unknown with you, because in that moment you are the unknown. Think of it like this, she's not only asking, do I want him? She's also asking, who will I become when I'm with him? That's the deeper evaluation. A man who makes her feel more alive, more feminine, more curious, he unlocks a part of her she wants to see in herself. And when that happens, her barriers fall faster than either of you expect. But let's slow down here, because none of this is about manipulation. It's about awareness. Awareness of the invisible language you're speaking, through your presence, your touch, your timing. Awareness of how desire is not just built in her mind, but in her body. Have you ever noticed how some men can stand close to a woman, say almost nothing, and yet she leans in, laughs at things that aren't even jokes, and finds reasons to keep talking? That's not magic. That's a man who knows how to hold space without rushing to fill it. A man who doesn't fidget in the silence. A man whose attention feels like sunlight, warm, steady, and just enough to make her open up without fear of being burned. This is the part most men underestimate. Your energy in those first few minutes is either a door or a wall. If your energy says, I need you to validate me, she will feel the weight of that need, and her body will pull back. If your energy says, I'm here to enjoy this moment, with or without an outcome, she will feel the lightness of that freedom, and her body will lean forward. Women are exquisitely attuned to the difference between a man who is hunting for approval and a man who is simply present. The first makes her cautious, the second makes her curious. And curiosity is the seed from which instant desire grows. So let's start stripping away the old ideas. It's not about being the tallest, richest, or most handsome man in the room. It's about being the man whose presence answers two subconscious questions for her. Am I safe and am I excited? When those answers are both yes, her walls drop quickly, sometimes instantly. And here's the hard truth. You can't fake this. You can't pretend to be grounded if you're not. You can't pretend to be relaxed if your entire body is wired with insecurity. She'll feel the gap between your mask and your reality. The only way to create that mix of safety and thrill is to become it. That means working on yourself, not just your body or your bank account, but your relationship with your own emotions, your own boundaries, your own sense of worth. Because here's what's wild. Once you carry that energy naturally, you won't even have to try to make a woman want you. You'll notice how she responds before you've made any move. The lingering eye contact, the subtle touch on your arm, the way her voice softens. These aren't signs you chase. They're signs that appear when you've built the foundation inside yourself first. Now that we've pulled back the curtain on this first invisible layer, The way presence shapes instant attraction, we can go deeper into the next, equally important truth: the unspoken triggers that make a woman's mind and body align in a single wordless yes. When a woman feels drawn to a man within minutes of meeting him, it isn't just about the way he looks, or even the way he speaks. It's about something much older than language. You see, her body has been practicing this selection process for thousands of years. It's written into her biology, her survival instincts, and yes, her private fantasies. From the outside, you might think it's random she slept with him, but not him. She laughed all night with one man and left the other on scene. But underneath, her mind and body are scanning for cues, almost like running a secret checklist you'll never see on paper. One of the first cues: confidence without tension. This is not the puffed up, loud kind of confidence. This is the stillness of a man who isn't desperate to prove himself. In a biological sense, this signals resourcefulness, stability, and emotional safety, traits that, for generations, meant the difference between thriving and struggling. A man like this doesn't seek the spotlight. He holds it naturally, without needing applause. And to a woman, that presence feels like gravity. The second cue is subtler emotional attunement. This is where most men miss the mark. Many think attraction is about projecting their own energy outward, telling stories, making jokes, showing dominance. But women feel deeply attracted to a man who can read the room, who can notice her shifting tone, the pause before she answers, the way her eyes flick away when she's unsure. That awareness, that ability to sense and respond without making it about yourself, tells her that you're not just present, you're connected. In her nervous system, this feels like being seen, and being seen is one of the fastest ways to build intimacy. And then there's the third primal cue: sexual polarity. Every powerful attraction rests on it. She may admire you, trust you, enjoy your company, but without polarity, there's no pull into the physical. Polarity is created when your masculine energy, your grounded direction, your ability to lead without controlling, meets her feminine energy, which thrives on openness, flow, and surrender. It's not about old-fashioned gender roles. It's about an energetic dance. When you stand firmly in your own masculine presence, you give her the unspoken permission to drop deeper into her femininity. That's when her body starts answering questions her mind hasn't even formed yet. Now, here's where it gets interesting. These triggers don't work in isolation. They work together, almost like chords in music. Alone, each note is pleasant. Together, they create the kind of resonance that moves her in ways she can't explain. That's why you can see a man who's average in looks but irresistible in magnetism. He's playing all the right chords without forcing them. Of course, there's also the chemistry of the unknown, the thrill of novelty. For some women, this is irresistible. The man who seems to open a door into a world she hasn't walked through before. It's not about danger in the harmful sense. It's about expansion. Does being near you make her feel more alive? Does she sense that you will challenge her in ways that excite rather than exhaust her? That you'll stir emotions she hasn't touched in a long time? That's the kind of man she'll take a risk on quickly. But here's the trap: some men hear this and think they need to perform these qualities to get the result. That's the fastest way to kill attraction. You can't fake grounded confidence. You can't pretend to be attuned to her when you're actually listening to your own fears. You can't force polarity by mimicking alpha behavior. She'll feel the hollowness behind it. What you can do is cultivate these qualities in yourself for yourself. Build a life you're proud of. Learn to stay calm in discomfort. Practice listening in a way that lets people feel safe around you. Take responsibility for your own desires without making them her burden. When you live this way, the energy you give off will speak for itself. And here's a little known truth: women often decide within the first few minutes whether they would sleep with a man, but they may not act on it right away. They file it away in their body, in their mind, and wait to see if you'll stay in alignment with that first impression or sabotage yourself. The fastest way to lose it, needing it. The fastest way to keep it, forgetting about the outcome and staying in the moment. Instant attraction is not about speeding to the finish line. It's about creating a space where her own desire can move freely toward you without being chased. A man who understands this becomes a paradox: patient yet certain, relaxed yet intentional. And that paradox is intoxicating. When you begin to embody these deeper triggers, the quiet confidence, the emotional attunement, the unshakable polarity, something else happens too. You stop obsessing over why her and not me, and start realizing that attraction is not something you take from a woman. It's something you invite, and when she accepts that invitation, it will feel as natural as breathing. Now that we've peeled back the psychology and biology of her instant yes, we can start uncovering something even more intimate: how a woman's personal history and emotional blueprint shape the men she chooses to let in, and the ones she doesn't. No matter how perfect they seem on paper, every woman you meet carries a private map of attraction, a kind of emotional blueprint built from years of experiences, heartbreaks, moments of safety, moments of betrayal, and the ways she's learned to protect herself. This map is not written in ink. It's etched into her nervous system, shaping how she responds to you before she even understands why. This is why two men can offer the same same compliments, the same attention, even the same physical type, and yet one is invited into her bed after hours while the other is kept firmly on the outside. It's not that one man did everything right and the other did everything wrong. It's that one matched a pattern in her blueprint, the pattern of desire, safety, or danger that her body has learned to associate with intimacy. You can think of it like music. Certain chords will instantly make you feel something: joy, sadness, nostalgia, even if you can't name the notes. Her blueprint works the same way. There are certain notes in a man's presence, tone and touch that either open her or close her instantly. Now, here's the complicated truth. Some of these patterns come from her healthiest experiences, and some come from her wounds. For example, if she grew up with a father who was warm but unpredictable, she may find herself instantly drawn to men who carry that same emotional rhythm, men who feel intoxicating in their highs, but leave her unsteady in their lows. She's not consciously choosing chaos, she's responding to familiarity. Her body says, I know this dance. On the other hand, if she's had relationships where she felt deeply safe, respected and cherished, her body might be wired to recognize those signals and move toward them faster. The warmth in your voice, the steadiness of your gaze, the way you touch her in a way that says, I want you without saying I own you. The challenge for you as a man is that you can't see her blueprint. You can only feel your way through it by staying aware, curious and attuned. This is why presence matters so much. If you're trying to game her using techniques you've memorized from somewhere, you're not actually in the moment with her, you're performing. And performance breaks the connection because it's about your outcome, not her experience. When you're fully present, you begin to notice her micro reactions, the subtle leaning in when she feels safe, the almost imperceptible pullback when you've crossed a boundary she can't name yet. You start to understand what so many men overlook. Instant attraction is not just about triggering her desire. It's about avoiding the triggers that shut it down. This is also where empathy becomes a powerful and rare skill, not the overcompensating kind of empathy that tries to fix her feelings, but the grounded kind that can hold space for her without judgment. Imagine this: you're talking, you touch her hand, and you sense, just for a split second, that she tenses. A man in his own ego will either ignore it or push past it. A man in tune with her will slow down, soften his touch, and let her decide if she wants to close that gap again. That single moment of restraint can flip a switch in her body from I need to guard myself to I can trust him enough to open. And here's where things get even more layered. Instant intimacy is often less about the sexual act itself and more about what that act represents for her in that moment. For some women, sleeping with a man quickly is about seizing a rare and powerful connection while it's fresh. For others, it's about claiming agency over their own desire, proving to themselves they can act on what they want without shame. For others still, it's about testing whether the man they feel drawn to will still respect them afterward. Your role in this is not to guess or control the meaning for her. Your role is to make sure that whatever meaning she chooses, your presence supports it rather than undermines it. If she feels alive, seen, and respected in your company, she is far more likely to act on her attraction and far less likely to regret it afterward. And this brings us to one of the quietest yet most decisive factors in her blueprint: emotional pacing. Some men, when they sense attraction, rush to intensify it. More touching, more eye contact, more suggestive language. But in doing so, they inadvertently move faster than her nervous system can process. Even if she wants you, if you outpace her comfort, her body will send a signal to pull back. The man who understands pacing, who can let the attraction breathe, who can build tension rather than chase release, becomes the man she associates with deep, safe excitement. That's the man she can say yes to without hesitation. This is why the player energy, while it can create quick flings, often fails to create truly magnetic, lasting connections. The player is focused on closing the deal. The grounded, attuned man is focused on deepening the connection. Ironically, this often leads to faster, more passionate intimacy, because she feels like she's choosing it, not being sold on it. And remember this: her blueprint is always evolving. A woman who once chased chaos may one day crave calm. A woman who once sought only stability may suddenly long for wildness. You cannot control that shift, but if you live in your own truth, confident, attuned, unafraid of depth, you will attract women whose current blueprint resonates with your authentic energy. So when you find yourself wondering why her and not me, the answer may not be about what you lack, but about what her history has prepared her to receive in this chapter of her life. You may be the right man for another woman's map, just not hers. The power comes from knowing that you don't need to contort yourself to fit her blueprint. You simply need to stand firmly in your own and trust that the women drawn to that energy will be drawn to it quickly, deeply and without confusion, because the truth is attraction, the kind that leads to those instant, unforgettable nights, is not built in the moment you touch her. It's built in the way you've touched your own life, your own heart, your own purpose, long before she met you. That's the foundation she feels, even if she can't name it. And once you understand this, you can start to play with another powerful layer of attraction, one that sits at the intersection of mind, body, and mystery: the art of tension. The kind of tension that keeps her leaning in, breath caught, not because she feels pressured, but because she wants more than she can say out loud. When you think about attraction, you might picture two people moving closer and closer until they're wrapped around each other. But that's not how true desire works. Real attraction, the kind that can make a woman want you instantly, is born in the space between you. Think of it like fire. If you press the logs too tightly together, the flames die out from lack of air. But give them just enough space, and the heat builds until it becomes impossible to ignore. The same is true with human connection. Too much closeness too soon, and she feels smothered. Too much distance, and she feels indifferent. The magic is in knowing how to create space that pulls her toward you, rather than pushing her away. This is where so many men misstep. Some move in too fast, physically, emotionally, verbally, flooding the interaction with their desire before she's ready to meet it. Others hang back too much, afraid to show interest, and end up feeling like a safe acquaintance instead of a potential lover. The man who understands tension knows how to occupy the space between, close enough to spark her imagination, far enough to make her want more. Tension begins with restraint, not the kind of code, manipulative withholding that games her into chasing you, but the warm, steady kind that says, I want you, and I can wait for you. When she senses that you're not rushing to cash in your attraction, she begins to relax. She feels she has room to breathe, to explore the chemistry at her own pace. And ironically, this freedom often speeds up her desire. Part of this is psychological, part biological. Humans are wired to crave what's just out of reach. It's not about teasing her in a shallow way. It's about offering her glimpses of what it might feel like to be with you, and then stepping back just enough for her to lean in. This is why the most intoxicating encounters are often the ones where not everything is said or done right away. The unknown is a powerful aphrodisiac. Let's take physical touch as an example. A man who rushes to put his hands on her too soon robs her of the pleasure of anticipation. A man who never initiates touch leaves her wondering if he feels anything at all. But a man who lets a touch linger just slightly longer than necessary, a brush of the hand, a guiding touch at her back, a shared moment where your fingers almost but don't quite intertwine, creates a pulse in her body that words can't reach. That's tension. The same applies to conversation. Many men make the mistake of laying everything out too soon. Their whole story, every compliment, every confession of attraction, in the first half hour. But a woman's desire isn't built on information. It's built on curiosity. Leave room for her to ask about you. Let her wonder what you're thinking. Give her the sense that there are still rooms in your house she hasn't walked through yet. And here's the deeper truth. Tension is not about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about showing enough of yourself to invite her closer, while holding enough of yourself back to keep her intrigued. When she senses there's more to you than she's seeing right now, her mind starts to fill in the blanks, often in ways that heighten her attraction. But tension isn't only about what you withhold. It's also about how you give. When you do choose to lean in, with a compliment, a touch, a moment of shared vulnerability, you do it with full presence. No half looks at your phone, no distracted glances at the room. You meet her with the kind of attention that makes her feel like the only person in the world. That intensity, followed by the gentle pullback into space, creates a rhythm she can't help but move toward. One of the most powerful forms of tension is emotional tension, the space between revealing your interest and letting her respond in her own time. This means not rushing to fill silences, not explaining every thought, not cushioning every moment with reassurance. Silences, when you're comfortable in them, are invitations. They let her feel her own desire rising instead of having you force it. And let's not forget sexual tension, that spark that builds when you acknowledge attraction without immediately acting on it. It could be as simple as holding her gaze half a second longer than usual, letting your eyes drop to her lips just once before meeting her eyes again. It's subtle, almost deniable, but undeniable in the way it makes her feel. She knows you want her, but she also knows you're not going to take until she offers. That's where respect and desire meet. Now here's the thing most men misunderstand. Tension isn't a trick to get her to say yes. It's a way of creating a shared emotional landscape where yes feels natural, exciting, and safe for her and for you. When you master tension, you're not pushing for a result, you're inviting an experience. And tension works both ways. You allow her to feel the pull toward you, but you also let yourself feel the pull toward her. You let her mastery work on you. You stay curious about her rather than rushing to define her or claim her. This reciprocity, where you're both leaning in and leaning back in turn, is what makes the dance of attraction unforgettable. Of course, tension only works when it's real. If you're faking detachment while secretly clinging to the hope that she'll choose you, she'll sense it. If you're using tension as a calculated tactic while hiding insecurity, she'll feel the gap between your words and your energy. True tension comes from being genuinely at ease with desire, yours and hers, without needing to control it. This is why some of the most magnetic men aren't necessarily the most traditionally attractive, but the most comfortable in their own skin. They don't panic when attraction builds. They don't rush to close the distance. They enjoy the space between, because they know that space is where the fire lives. When you learn to live in that space, you stop fearing rejection, because you're no longer chasing a yes or no. You're creating moments. You're exploring connection. You're giving her the freedom to meet you halfway, and you're confident enough to let her decide if she wants to. That confidence, that patience, that quiet willingness to hold the flame without snuffing it out, that's what makes a woman's decision to be with you feel instant and inevitable at the same time. And here's the most fascinating part. Once you understand tension, you realize that attraction is not a straight line, it's a spiral, each pass bringing you closer, each moment of space making the closeness more electric when it finally comes. That's the rhythm that lingers in her memory long after the night is over. That's the rhythm that makes her think, I knew from the moment I met him. But tension is just one half of the final equation, because desire, no matter how intense, still needs one final key to turn it into action: trust. Not just the trust that you won't harm her, but the deeper trust that she can step fully into her own desire with you without losing herself. That's where everything comes together: presence, blueprint, tension, into the moment where she says yes with her whole body. Attraction can spark in an instant, but crossing the line into physical intimacy, whether it takes hours or months, almost always passes through the same invisible checkpoint: trust. Trust is not just about whether she believes you're good guy. It's far more personal, far more intimate than that. It's about whether she can trust herself in your presence. Can she trust that she won't wake up the next morning regretting not the act itself, but the way she felt about it? Can she trust that you will see her the same way afterward, or perhaps even more fully than you did before? When a woman meets a man who radiates this kind of trustworthiness, everything in her nervous system shifts. Her guard, which may have been trained by years of heartbreak, disappointment, and the subtle erosions of self-worth, begins to loosen. And when that happens alongside the chemistry, the tension, and the blueprint match we've already talked about, her decision to be with you can feel as natural and inevitable as gravity. But here's where it gets complicated. Trust isn't built only through words or even actions. It's built through consistency. Consistency between your words and your actions, between your touch and your tone, between the way you treat her in public and in private. When these things align, you send a message that her vulnerability is safe with you, and that's the signal that can tip her from curiosity into action. For some women, trust is also about emotional containment. They need to feel that you can handle the fullness of who they are without collapsing, judging, or withdrawing. That if they reveal their fears, their quirks, their wildness, you won't flinch. This doesn't mean becoming her therapist or trying to solve every problem she mentions. It means letting her see that her emotions, even the messy ones, don't scare you. That you can be steady without being distant, attentive without being needy. One of the most underestimated trust builders is how you handle no. If a woman senses that you see her boundaries as obstacles to push past, she will tighten them. But if she feels that her no is met with respect, not disappointment, not manipulation, not guilt, she will remember that. She will remember that she felt free in your presence. And freedom is one of the most erotic states a person can feel. Ironically, it's often the man who can hear no without pulling away who ends up hearing yes later, because she knows it will still be her choice. Trust also grows when she feels you're not playing a role, when your attraction to her isn't a script you've rehearsed, but a natural extension of your desire. She can sense when a compliment comes from a place of genuine appreciation versus a line meant to achieve a goal. She can feel the difference between a kiss that's about you wanting to win and a kiss that's about savoring the moment. Here's the paradox. Building this kind of trust doesn't mean suppressing your sexual interest. In fact, hiding it can feel dishonest. It means owning it in a way that doesn't make it her responsibility. You can say with your body, your eyes, even your words, I want you, and still let her feel that you will be perfectly fine whether she says yes or no in this moment. That combination, desire without pressure, is rare, and rare is irresistible. Trust is also built in the way you handle the small, easily overlooked moments, how you speak to the server when you're out, whether you listen when she's talking or just wait for your turn to speak, whether you remember details she shared casually a week ago. These small acts tell her more about your character than any grand gesture ever could. They answer the question she may not even consciously be asking: if I let myself go with him, will I still feel respected afterward? For some women, instant intimacy comes when they feel you can hold both sides of them. The side they show the world and the side they keep hidden. This is where deep listening becomes magnetic. When you show interest not only in her stories but in the feelings beneath them, you create a bridge to that hidden side. And when she feels that bridge is strong enough to cross, she may choose to cross it sooner than she imagined. But there's another layer to trust that often goes unspoken: how you trust yourself. If you are comfortable with your own desires, boundaries, and emotions, she can relax into hers. If you are ashamed of your attraction or afraid of being rejected, she will feel the weight of that insecurity. When you know who you are, and you like who you are, she can trust that she's not stepping into an emotional minefield by being close to you. This is why trust and tension are not opposites. They're dance partners. Tension without trust feels unsafe. Trust without tension feels platonic. When you give her both, you create a space where her desire can rise without fear. And that's when instant attraction can turn into instant intimacy. It's worth saying not every woman you meet will say yes, no matter how much trust, tension, or connection you create. And that's okay. In fact, the more you accept that reality without bitterness, the more magnetic you become. Because a man who doesn't need every woman to choose him is a man women feel freer to choose. When all of this comes together, your presence, your awareness of her blueprint, your mastery of tension, your ability to inspire trust, what you offer her is rare, a safe place to feel unsafe. That paradox is the essence of desire, safe enough to open, thrilling enough to make opening feel like an adventure. And here's the truth you'll only see once you've lived it: in the moments when she decides to be with you instantly. It's not because you won her over in that night. It's because everything about you, the way you look at her, the way you move, the way you listen, the way you make her feel, has shown her that she can step into her own desire fully and freely with you. That's the ultimate yes. So the next time you wonder why some men seem to spark that yes without effort, remember, it's not magic and it's not manipulation. It's the natural result of living in such a way that your confidence, your awareness, your restraint, and your integrity are all in harmony. When you live like that, you don't have to chase instant intimacy. You become the kind of man it finds. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about tricks or lines or strategies. It's about becoming the man whose presence is the invitation, whose silence is as compelling as his words, whose touch feels like both a question and a promise. The man who understands that the fastest path to a woman's body is through the space where her heart and her desire meet. And the only way to walk that path is with trust at every step.